So this video isn't really going to be scripted as much, or at least I'm not going to try and make it as scripted compared to my other videos, since the Digital Circus only just recently released a pilot like a week ago, and there's like a lot to uncover and explain. In fact, I don't even know what I really want this theory to be about, even if you can call it that. So I guess I'm just gonna talk about some points of interest that I have from what they showed in the pilot, and I guess try and figure out how some of these connect to my SMG4 theory and trying to explain how the characters got here and their stories and whatnot, because I do think the TV entity is connected to this in some way. So the first point of interest is Kane. He seems to have control over the Digital Circus and seems to be the ringmaster of the place. I question whether he's a human. Like, I know he's definitely not a person since he processes things like a robot or some kind of computer, and he kind of gives yes or no answers to Pomni's questions when she first enters the circus, and just kind of ends up freezing when asked about how to leave, like it's not a dialogue option that he's programmed to say. Speaking of which, it might be a little too early to say this, but when Pomni asks Kane about the exit, Kane says that Pomni might be experiencing digital hallucinations. Now, I don't know if that's a real thing, but this implies that their mind is being completely transported into the simulation. Like, they can feel everything that's happening in that world in real time. And this already draws a connection to how we know the simulation works in the Western spaghetti, because we know Mega gets shot a lot in that movie. But we'll get back to that later. Don't you worry. So despite being an artificial intelligence, or possibly modeled after someone, he does have like some surface level human knowledge, as he does give the characters in the Digital Circus food and their own rooms, despite not needing it, especially since they don't sleep or even feel the sensation of eating at all. It's all like simulated. So it's clearly know that he knows how to like take care of people, so he's not like completely immoral, oh, AI wants to kill everything kind of person. So despite having control over the circus and being the ringmaster, he's not the creator of it, or at least the person who coded it. Because when he goes to the void, he himself says that he doesn't know what's past it, which kind of shoots down the idea that he's just an AI model after a person's mind, as he would more than likely have some kind of memory or a sensation of being human, even if it was completely fabricated. So despite that not really being true, Kane is definitely related to whoever made the simulation, whether it was a team or individual person that specifically made Kane to like watch over real people, because well obviously whoever made him entrusted his AI to literally run people's lives, and that's a pretty crazy and irresponsible thing to do. But then again, we don't know what time the show takes place, so that might be explained later. So that's really it for Kane. I'm only really going to talk about him whenever he's like involved with the different characters. So without further ado, let's get into the next one. So the information that the pilot gives to us about Kinger is that he's the longest resident of the Digital Circus, and somehow it hasn't quote-unquote deconstructed, despite practically being insane. Later on in the pilot, they imply that he has a wife of some kind, because as Ragatha Jax are going down the hallway to Pomni's door, they end up like walking past a bunch of other doors where they have character images that are crossed off, and one of them is a queen chess piece. So I think this definitely implies that Kinger has some kind of wife. Okay, so originally, I wasn't paying full attention to the pilot as I was writing the script for this video, and so what happened ended up like glossing over the fact that there are multiple characters that I've deconstructed, so it's more than likely that the characters that we see crossed out are these deconstructed people. They're just like caught in this giant mass underneath the circus. On one hand, this does mean that the characters that we don't see part of the main cast are still alive, but it still puts into question whether they can die or not, because obviously they have implied that they have a physical body to put on the VR headset to go into the Digital Circus. But this does still put into question whether or not they need food or water to make sure their brains don't rot off and die, because before they explain how abstraction actually works, I thought like abstraction was them kind of waking up and their mind being split between the circus and reality, since their bodies, like something is happening to their bodies physically that are keeping them from being under the simulation. The pilot basically disproves this idea that it's their body kind of reacting to their mind being in this VR headset, because when we see Kaufmo in this abstracted, weird, glitchy animal form, he still seems to be somewhat conscious. As Ragatha is talking to him, he tilts his head like he understands what she's saying. Sorry that section didn't really stay on topic with Kinger, but for the most part, we got some interesting ideas out of it. Next character, Jax. Although we don't really get any backstory for his character, or that much backstory for the other characters, to be honest, except Pomni, but he definitely seems the most chill out of the group, especially compared to Ragatha, although she's like nowhere near her breaking point compared to Kinger, but at the same time she definitely seems a bit more on edge compared to other characters, but Jax doesn't seem to be on that level at all, and I think it's like a coping mechanism so he doesn't go insane. Since at first I thought he was like a teenager or someone related to who made the circus because he knows the inner workings and whatnot. Because he seems way too comfortable being in a fake world. But I think the better speculation is that Jax, as a human, must have had a troubled past and then he saw a digital circus as an escape. Because again, he seems way too comfortable being in a fake world. While Ragatha, on the other hand, sees the activities as something to stimulate their brains and stop them from abstracting, Jax, knowing this, is comfortable with this and is even playing pranks on people. Again, he's way too comfortable in the circus. Next character of interest is Gaggle. There really isn't much to say about her. She's just mostly like sad most of the time. Although I do think it's interesting that her body influences the way how she feels. Because when she wears the comedy mask, she's happy, but whenever she has the sad mask on, she's sad. So this could be a hint that their bodies can influence how they feel. Outside of that, I do like the interactions between her and Kinger. I thought they were pretty funny when I watched the pilot. Okay, that was a lot. But now we finally made it to the last and most important character, Pomni. Originally, she was the reason I made this theory, if you can call it that, since the way she entered a digital circus, it was immediately similar to how the characters in SMG4 were stuck in that simulation, so I immediately drew connections between the two, as I came to the conclusion in my theory that the TV entity can travel to different universes. I still believe that the TV entity can travel to different universes. Now I'm just a bit unsure if he actually traveled to the Metaverse universe because in my original theory, the hints of that being a possibility were pretty vague. But if you're looking at this from a meta standpoint, and the TV entity represents all the shows that Glitch has been making as of late, then Metarunner would logically fall into this. But besides that, I think we can infer that she must have stumbled onto the headset because when she first enters the circus, she says, "How do I take this headset off?" She doesn't say the name or the brand of the headset. But if we're going to take at face value what the camera showed when it zoomed in out into the real world with the abandoned building, someone must be keeping maintenance on it because no one's there, but the building's still intact. It's not like dilapidated or anything like that. And there's no way that everyone that works for this company are all in the simulation. Even if that's not the case, she clearly wasn't supposed to be there because the CNA company that we see is clearly out of business if we assume that the office that we see Pomni run through is from her recent memory. Also, the computer monitor and the headset that we see side by side do seem pretty old and withered. Like, they still function, but they're obviously very old, which supports the fact that the CNA company might be out of business or out of commission. Also, as I was writing this script, I saw some other online theories about what CNA stands for, and some people came to the conclusion that it stands for Cain and Abel, because they have a character named Cain, and I guess Abel is a character that hasn't been shown yet. Now, I don't personally believe this, nor am I one to shoot down other people's theories. I mean, that's how it works. We have to find other theories, get different ideas to figure out things and solve them. But I figured it'd just be like an interesting idea to bring up to kind of get an idea of other people's headspace when theorizing this. One detail that supports the idea that she wasn't supposed to be in the CNA building was the fact that she impulsively ran towards the door when she entered the circus. And although this might not seem that important, the fact that she just ran to it without a second thought implies that there's a door just like this outside the simulation. Even though towards the end of the pilot, we see the camera zoom out of the void into the real world, we don't see that door. Again, this is the pilot, so we don't really know a lot about what's happening outside the simulation itself, although that should be brought up later since they did draw attention to it towards the end of the pilot. So that's been my kind of theory slash explanation of the digital circus so far. Again, not too much to uncover, but I do like all the mysteries that we've been given so far, and I really can't wait to see what they bring up next.
Well done! What a show that was! Great choices. We should really do this again sometime.
So needless to say, I didn't expect this. Well, that's kind of a lie. I knew they would probably tie something back to the TV entity, but I didn't know they would give it like a full reveal, especially since this Wappy didn't seem too arc intensive or relate to some big story like the school one did. Also, if some of you happen to see my activity on other YouTube videos involving theories around SMG4, I've been saying that like, oh, they're gonna make this TV entity like the next SMG0 because they weren't trying to like reveal him too often compared to other villains. Not only that, but the TV entity has been pretty passive in his past few stories, unlike SMG3 and Francis that were pretty active antagonists in their stories. Again, he's a lot more similar to SMG0 in the idea that he's the guy in the background pulling all the strings. But besides that, this teaser of this new villain possibly proves that it has the ability to travel different universes, as when we see the camera zoom out, it looks at SMG4 and SMG3 through a TV screen, and it's implied that it can possibly look at other channels. Now again, we don't know a lot about this character, so most of what I'm saying is speculatory, but bear with me. When we see the camera at the end of the walk phase zoom out to see the TV entity, it's shot in a similar way to how the camera zooms out of the simulation in the digital circus. And we see the TV entity look through the screen like a window, which does raise an interesting question about SMG4's cosmology because we know that SMG4 has been to the real world. So does this imply that the TV entity is a layer above Luke and Kevin or below them? I don't really know, but I think we'll get our answers soon. But anyway, that's been the video, and this is Static tuning out.